Hello there. It is March 23rd, I believe, of 2025. So I just had breakfast a little bit ago. I I was just hanging out in there for probably too long. I was watching a few videos and whatnot, and I wish I had. It's kind of quite a bit of sugar for breakfast stuff on the weekends here, but they don't have like eggs or sausage or anything like that out normally on Saturdays and Sundays. During the school days, yeah, but I don't know. Anyhow, yeah, I think it's probably still too early for me to go to the gym because I think they only open at like 12. So it's like about 10:30 right now, and I don't want to just hang out around over here for an hour and a half or so. But anyways, today, of course, I have a few productive things I got to do. I have the 2 papers to work on, one to edit, one to make some progress on this much shorter one. It's only like 2 pages or so, a little bit easier. Still going to take a decent amount of thought, but I can do it. And then I might wash my bed sheets and I don't know if I'll do that or not. It's been, honestly, it's not really been that bad. I haven't really eaten snacks up or anything like there. Most of the time nowadays when I out from my bed, I'm just like, I'm starting to feel a little bit more like, what, I'm not gonna always necessarily be like, oh, let me watch, a video or two or scroll through Pinterest or text some people or whatever before I, fall asleep. I'm just like, nah, I'm too tired, And it's funny because it's like, it'll be like 12:30, or whatever, like my normal time of bed is, or maybe even a little earlier, right? And I'll be like, I feel tired. So it'll just feel like a really big relief. And when I wake up, it's not hard for me to, get out and go do things I want. I'm like, oh, my bed feels so comfortable. But yeah, I'm not here to talk on all about that. So that's just, just a few little things. But so anyways, yesterday, I was kind of watching some of my videos again. Partly because, I was releasing two of them yesterday, and they took a while to export and then to upload in the process on YouTube. Right, so just kind of passing some of the time there, but but it made me sort of have a few, I don't know, sort of realizations. I don't think these are necessarily bad things by any means, but just kind of stuff for me to think about or reflect on, maybe a little bit. Or I don't know, maybe I'm overanalyzing, but so one, so we watch some of my earliest daily walk videos. I don't think it was exclusively in those by any means. I think I've probably had in quite a few of these, so let's be real, but I think I understand a little bit better now, the sort of emotions that I've had, in particular anxiety or anger, mostly anxiety, although maybe a little with the anger too. When I've talked about stuff in previous ones. So let me give you an example here. So I rewatched. I thought I had daily walk videos from before it, but nonetheless, so I watched ones from what was it? The 5th of November. So that was, that was when I voted, right? Presidential election, last year here in the United States, right? And I talked about how, what was it that, either things are just going to be, maybe slightly better or slightly worse or about the same, but pretty much status quo, right, under, Harris, if she, had been, if she, at the time, I guess I didn't know, right, if she was going to be elected. Obviously she wasn't. Didn't turn out that way, or that if Trump got elected, everything would just kind of, fall into shambles, and, the shit would start flying everywhere, or, use whatever colorful language you'd like to describe the way that I maybe expressed myself or felt. I don't know, maybe I'm over exaggerating because of my own current anxieties about things, but I do realize that, okay, well, the point is, I'm not ashamed of the fact that I have felt anxious or cared about different things, or that I've tried to learn about them, but just in the way that, I don't know, either I express myself or the way that, I don't know, the emotion shows itself, for me, and, right, I feel, at least right now, well, I know that anxiety, right, it's, emotions are irrational, but, where I'm not here to set the whole logic good, emotion bad, because no, but it's not what I used to think, maybe, but now I don't, haven't for a while, right, but I've kind of been well, I don't know, but a way of putting it, I suppose, is I feel like I've let it have a lot of power over me, a lot of power over the way that I, feel, and maybe what I decide to do in my day-to-day life, right? Maybe not every single day, but, to some degree, right? So, realistically speaking, I don't think it's necessarily all too bad. So there's a bus up here, so just walk back the other way. Right, but, because, what am I trying to say here? Getting a little, I don't know, confused, misunderstand, I don't know, whatever. Right now, I'm sorry. But I've let it influence the way that I've maybe viewed stuff like politics or whatever, and I've honestly asked myself, genuinely, why do care? Why do I feel the way that I do? Why have, why has this, emotion been so influential to me? And I honestly don't know exactly what don't mind that there's a bunch of guys down there doing whatever it is where they play or something, but right, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what there, I don't know if there's necessarily an easy answer or not, or maybe there is, and maybe I'm simply just overthinking it, which, I feel like I probably, I very often do that, right? Well, I mean, I think one part is that, I think honestly, maybe a part of it, maybe not the entire thing, but maybe a part of it is that, I like to be mentally stimulated, right? I'm trying to look for things that will, satisfy my curiosity, or that will, make me feel like engaged, or interested, or something to, be passionate about, to feel alive with, right? Because it kind of brings me out of the, what is it? Kind of just like the de facto, sort of state of, I'm just, on autopilot, right? Essentially. Kind of the idea. And it's like, I want to feel like I'm doing something for myself on that front. And I feel like maybe for a lot of people, maybe they don't necessarily need that, or maybe they're just looking for physical type stimulation. And I'm not talking sex here. I'm just saying, like, sports, right? Or, very other sort of very physical activities, like going on, really big long hikes, or, or they could even just simply be, just, yoga, or, really whatever, I don't know. But, whatever suits their fancy, And I'm not saying that because I don't think I need physical stimulation, or that I don't, or whatever, because I do think I do, or I do think that, it's nice to get some of that. I don't want to, I feel really weird if I try to just live reality as purely just in my head, because it can be really exhausting, often is, and you kind of really lose touch with a lot of reality in that way. But I don't know. I feel like this sort of wanting to sort of feel stimulated in that way, like that I just try to find things to analyze. I try to find problems to think about, or to engage with, or to sort of focus on, right? And it makes me feel like I'm doing, something. Sorry. It makes me feel like, I'm, I don't know, either I'm having something I'm doing in my life, essentially. But, that can be problematic, that can be, you know, problematic in of itself, because it's like, well, I mean, I feel like, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that a lot of people, they just exist. They just exist. And I'm not saying that to, I'm not trying to say that in like in a mean way. I'm not trying to say that in a way as if like people that, quote unquote just exist or whatever are like at a, lower, lower state of, human capability, or, whatever other bullshit you want to believe in, or I want to believe in, for that kind of reasoning. Because, well, it's also something that can be quite envied of, right? Like sometimes I kind of feel like, well, and I don't know, I mean, it's hard because it's like, well, every person's different, and you can't really fully, I don't know if you can really understand or fully comprehend all the ins and outs of another person's consciousness or life, or all the sort, everything that there is to be, XYZ person, whoever it might be, doesn't even matter, right? But it's like, I'm like, how do they just do it? How do people just, they just exist? They just sort of like feel, I don't know, maybe it's just, maybe a misunderstanding, because, I'm only able to see from the outside, from my own perspective, which is limited, but be like, they're just peaceful, and they're just calm, and they're just, everything's good, life is good, it's not perfect, but, it's good, and they just, sort of have this sort of, I don't know, not not like heavenly experience, but it's just peaceful, serene. It's it's like, they just are, right? They just exist. They're in the present as fully as they can be, and they they're just enjoying life, right? And I think for myself, sometimes this still sneaks in a little bit here and there, but I mean, especially when I was younger, I don't know exactly where this comes from, but I think maybe it's because of this sort of envy and then sort of denial of it, maybe. But I'd be like, wow, right? What was it like? Like, oh, I don't want to be with them because they're like, whoever it might be, right? Because they're dumb, or they're uninteresting, or they don't, talk about cool things, or they're not trying to, like, I don't know. What honestly, I can't even remember all the exact sort of language I might have used when I was younger. Honestly, I don't even really care. But, point being, like, right, I would just feel like, well, sorry. What is it? I don't know. I may honestly think I'm kind of moving in a different direction now. Kind of jumped away from what I was just saying. I'm sorry, but like, what is it that these other people, whoever might be, have that I don't. And I'm not talking like physical stuff, right? I'm not talking physical stuff. You know, not to say I haven't experienced that. I mean, I think maybe we all have to, or many of us have to, and in some variation, some degree. But for me, it wasn't about like stuff. It's about like what experiences, what relationships, what things in their mind do they have that just make it work. They just make it, everything's all good. And it truly is. And they somehow see this truth that I don't. Or experience this sort of oneness with reality that I don't. Or haven't. Whatever form I may look like. But at the same time now I go, well, I mean that's real. I really only, I get that, but there's a lot of things that we don't see in the people around us. There's a lot of things that we as people tend to hold to ourselves. We tend to hide that. We tend to, and I don't think it's a bad thing for us to, have, boundaries, or to have things that we don't really want to talk about, or we don't feel comfortable sharing because, I don't know, but, I think that's important, but at the same time too, sometimes I guess I can feel a little like, well, do I really truly know anyone besides myself, right? Because it's like, I don't know, it's like, well, what, maybe not necessarily from me by any means, because honestly, I guess it could depend on who you're asking, but most people, from most other people, maybe including myself as well, probably, right, we have lots of things that we just don't tell each other, we don't share, and oftentimes because, well, one, most people don't know most other people that are alive. I mean, there's like 8-9 billion people, give or take several hundred billion, right? Like, you're just not gonna know everyone, right? Maybe in the future you could, super far future, I don't know, if you gain some kind of like, mega mind consciousness or something, but besides something like that, right, like, you're just not gonna know most other people, right? I'm not gonna know most other people. I haven't. I could go on the whole thing with, new births and deaths every day, but, it's not, that's different point off there that, it's not really too relevant to the point of conversation here, but, it's like, I don't know, sometimes it can kind of make me feel like, well, right, I want to understand what reality is. I want to understand what, people go through, or what other perspectives there are on all sorts of things in life, And I'm not just talking, politics, right, but, I'm also talking, all sorts of cultural practices, like, religion, or, or history, or science, or, languages, or stuff like gender and sexuality, or, all sorts of philosophical and metaphysical sort of beliefs, that we have, or, really just about anything, I suppose. right? I want to understand. I want to learn. I want to engage with that because I want to feel, because I'm a curious person, and because, right, I also want to, I want to be able to sort of, in my own ways, whatever, sort of, fit in or vibe with, understand about a lot of other people, and so I can feel like I can engage with others, engage in the world, and that I can do the things I need to do in order to survive, right? I mean, you can't, no man is an island, or to say no person is an island, right? No person, so we all depend upon each other in some ways or another to get our needs met. I mean, that's just part of, the way that we are, the part of the way that, we are, engineered, and regardless of, whatever you, sort of believe in, right, you can find all sorts of, scientific facts and theories and whatnot, evolution, kind of backing stuff up like this, but anyways, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, so sometimes it's a sort of sense of not knowing, I guess, can kind of make me feel like, well, like, I don't want to, how do I say this? I don't want to, well, okay, I'm not always interested in this sort of new information or trying to understand other people's perspectives or not, because sometimes, I have, other things that are on my mind or that I'm trying to do or stuff I need to do. All right. I mean, that's just part of life, but, and I don't want to sort of push, people too much, because I also know that I have to think, well, reciprocally, back and forth, right? If I, and I don't know if anyone else really, how many other people think like this, but like, I was sort of, okay, when I learned about the whole thing of like the golden rule, when I was in like, I don't know, elementary school, preschool, something like that, kindergarten, whatever it was, right? Like, treat others the way that you want to be treated. But, and I don't know, maybe I just sort of, maybe I either expanded upon this, or maybe I'm misunderstanding what it is, or thinking about something completely different, but it's like, okay, so if I really want people to tell me stuff, to like, share information with me about whatever it is, when I ask people questions about things, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What's your interpretation of, XYZ thing, or what's your perspective on, right? And it's like, well, would I also be comfortable if asked the same thing, or a very similar thing, if you will, right? Regardless of, of the, sort of situation or person or whatever. So I'm like, okay, well, all right, so if I sort of a whole trade-off thing, only do to others what you feel comfortable having done unto yourself. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily always follow that necessarily, but I mean, it can become tricky to do, but right. And oftentimes I feel like maybe I myself included, are a lot more comfortable doing certain things to or for other people than we would have onto ourselves, or vice versa. right? Understandably so. But anyways, so anyway, I guess you're probably wondering, because I've been doing this one for like 30 minutes or so. You're probably wondering, well, okay, you've been going on and on for like the last, however many minutes on this whole thing, right at different points here. What does this have to do with your daily walk video thing, or your, sort of anxiety thing you talked about? Good question. Well, what does it have to do? Well, I think it's the whole thing for me of that, right, again, like I said earlier, that, trying, being curious, wanting to try to, just for the mental stimulation, can sometimes maybe cause me to a little bit backfire, because I'm constantly trying to look for things to learn or to, do or like understand or whatever mentally. I don't know, but we're trying to actually, what? I'm gonna go ahead and pause this video in just a minute or two here, because I'd like to go in, get my water bottle, maybe take the sweatshirt off, come back out here, and then I'll continue making a video. Alright, back, took that off, got the water, have my phone charger here. Hopefully it doesn't end the video when I try to plug this in to get charged, because I don't know how much batteries is used so far, but yeah, my phone was at like 61% when I left. Okay, there we go. I think it's charging now, so that's good. That's good. So trying to think, where was I left on here? Or was I, the whole, okay, so the whole, whole sort of anxiety thing, right? Or, daily walks, video and whatnot. Well, I don't know. And you're probably like, well, how dare you say that after, after 33 minutes, right? Took you 33 minutes just to say, I don't know. Valid. Okay. Fair point. But, sometimes that's the conclusion that, you just have to understand, or I have to understand. But, our knowledge, our perspective is limited. Why pretend to know or understand things that I don't really? Oh shit. Come on. Okay. So just being a little jerk, I guess. I'm not used to. There we go. Got phone charge. That's at 48%. Yeah, so definitely used quite a bit of battery recording this already, but that's fine. I think maybe it's also in part due to the fact that the way that I feel is also due to the fact that I want to feel, a greater sense of certainty in my life about the future. And, I know this is not how reality works, but, I know that I want to, if I could, right, I want to feel like, okay, if I can just go ahead and solve all of my problems of my entire life right now, or within, the present moment or a short period of time or something like that, right? If I can go ahead and solve them, thus proactively, then I won't ever have to deal with those types of things ever again. Or the only problems that I'll have will be small ones, right? And then I can kind of just take my life easy, and it'll be chill and relaxed, and then I don't have to, try too hard because I've already got everything figured out. Unfortunately, life is not like that, and I think that, I think maybe that's, I don't know if I would say that's demotivating for me. I don't think it necessarily is, but or has been, but I do think that it's like, well, I think for myself, okay, so I don't know how too relevant this is, but just bear with me, right? So, okay, so I've heard something along the lines of like, okay, well, you have sort of dreams or things that you want to have in your life, right? You have to work constantly and consistently hard towards them. You have to have a sort of vision of what you're trying to do, and then you have to take actionable steps and really push yourself in order to achieve those. And I think for myself, maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if you see otherwise, or if you beg to differ. But I feel like I don't think in terms of what's a vision of something in my future. I just think in terms of what are just different possibilities of things that I may or may not want. They're not, they're just like, possibilities, potentials, right? And I don't take most of them, I should say, too seriously. I take some of them more seriously, right? But, especially if I'm thinking, well, maybe this is what I want to do with my life, or maybe this is what I'd like to achieve or accomplish or whatever, right? But, or maybe it's, or maybe it is that I do sort of like have a sort of like vision, kind of, but maybe just keeps on being, I don't know, overturned or being, distracted from, because I'm just thinking about, different, theoreticals, different what ifs, different, random ideas that come into my mind. But, right, so maybe it's a little hard to focus on it, but sometimes it's like, I'm trying not to delve too much into personality type stuff here, because this is kind of where I'm getting actually, pretty much the entire thing, or a lot of it, from what I'm saying right now for like the last minute or two. Hopefully you understand. Right, but like, to me, it's like, okay, so I think about, okay, if there's something that I want to have or do, for example, if I wanted to have 300 videos on my YouTube channel, right? Currently at what, 225? Something like that? I don't know. That's just when I checked, like, last night. I think it was 224, 225, something like that. Think about, okay, so you could think about, well, okay, what are things that I can do in order to, reach that goal of, 300 views, or maybe better yet, I think this is probably a better example than just making videos, but like, or I don't know, maybe it's just a mindset thing, but like, I'm thinking, okay, so maybe I'm trying to say with my next like goal here, subscriber goal, right? So I'm currently at 70 subscribers. As I say, I'm trying to get 100 subscribers before Easter, right? Now it's a very small, subscriber goal overall. I mean, it's still a lot of people, right? I mean, 100 people is quite a lot actually, but but like comparatively to tons of other YouTubers, very small audience, right? And and I could really push myself. I could really say, okay, we're gonna try to really analyze, what the trends are on YouTube right now. We're gonna really try to analyze the trends on YouTube. We're going to make sort of plans. Okay, we're gonna make this sort of XYZ videos. We're going to go to certain places. We're gonna get particular resources, or meet with certain people. We're going to really be aggressive. We're going to really push for. We're going to try to really put all of ourselves, all of our effort into it, and really adapt with whatever sort of changes we need to make along the way in order to just do whatever I need to do, essentially, to get that done. And I don't think that I'm incapable of doing that or having that sort of energy or emotion or whatever. But I think for myself, like, I feel like most of the time, it's like, well, it's hard for me to, this is getting like super, like abstract here perhaps, but like, or just like the ideas of like, okay, so how big do you perceive the present moment to be, or how, or, so like, for example, are you the type of person who, when you perceive the present moment, that it feels just like it's a short little burst, or that there's tons of little subsequent present moments that occur in your life? Or does it feel more like the present kind of like stretches out much further, right, in one into the past and into the future, right? And it's like, well, I mean, to be honest, I'm not really too sure necessarily which one I am exactly yet, but or if it's something different perhaps. But like, to me, it's like, okay, so if I think about this, I'm like, well, to me, it always feels like, okay, so for some people, it's like, okay, you have to recognize that this is the time to do a certain type of action, and this is the certain type of time to do a different action in order to achieve whatever you're trying to do, right? But to me, it can feel like, well, all of the time always feels the same. It always just feels like this is like, it's always just the one, it's never the time to do certain things, because I just don't inherently feel that in my bones, or in my my body, or whatever, right? Like my body or my brain just doesn't go, all right, next stage, on, go, right? It just doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's all just, I guess maybe I'm just thinking, maybe I'm just feeling, I mean, I don't know, I'm leaning towards maybe I'm the second type of, I think, the present moment, it just stretches out really long. Well, I don't know, maybe it's the other way. Honestly don't know. Feel free to tell me in the comment section what you think, if you even understand what I'm saying. If you want to. No pressure though. What am I trying to say? What am I really trying to... What am I really trying to get at? I don't know. I don't know. I want to feel some sort of. Sorry, I can drink some water. I want to feel some sort of sense of like. I don't feel some sort of sense of like. I don't know. Closure with my thoughts, or that like. You know, it's not just gonna keep on going, or that I'm gonna kind of reach a point and I go, Eureka! And it just feels like, wow, I feel like ecstatic, and you know, everything's great now, and I've cracked a secret that will, you know, allow me to feel an exponential joy for the rest of my life, or something. You know, which is, you know, I don't think that's real. Oh, well, maybe it is. Maybe. It's just like I just want to know. I just want to know. You know what? You know, like, well, you know what? Well, you know, these big questions I have in my mind about things so much of the time, and I just want to know what the answers are, and I'm tired of not knowing. I'm tired of not knowing everything I need to, you know, or everything that I'm curious about, you know, or that I have to, you know, try to spend, you know, years of my life potentially, you know, trying to. I mean, I don't know, maybe this is kind of why this is kind of like why I've sort of, you know, a part of the reason why I didn't really want to go, I didn't think I wanted to go into like research fields or whatever, because it was like, well, you know, why am I going to have to try to spend an insane amount of time trying to learn just a very small part of the overall knowledge of everything? Like, if it takes that much effort and time to just learn like less than 1% of everything in a certain field, like, and I only have one life, and I don't want to spend, I don't want to, I don't want to spend like, 50, 60, 70 years trying to accomplish part of a fraction of something that may not even be questioned, may not even be answered. Like, if I'm going to do something, I want to know that there's a very likely prospect that I'm actually going to get something quite tangible, quite a bigger percent out of. Even if it's not a big percent, at least it's a moderate percent, right? So instead of 0.0000001, it's more like 29%. Like, that's moderate. That's a lot better, right? Or even something like 10%, right? It's like, if I feel like that I'm going into something that, like, I'm going to feel like this is the thing. I'm not just contributing to, I want to find that if I research something, I find something that's monumental. I find something that is big. I don't have to wait, my whole fucking life to get one thing and feel like I wasted my whole life on that one little thing that probably doesn't even matter anyways. Like, if I'm going to achieve something, I better well damn do a good job of it. I better well damn do exceedingly well. Find something that's really big, maybe not the biggest ever, like, that's not the point of it, but noticeable, right? If I find something, I want to make a name for myself out of it. I want to be known that, like, oh yeah, I was the one who discovered this. I was the one who created it. I was the first one to do that. Not just the 15,738th scientist who understood, the 83rd percent of, of a part of an idea that someone, 3,000 years ago figured out. Right? Like, if I'm going to research something, I want to be the first one to find it. I want to find something that's big. I want to do something that's original, and I want to be known for it. But it's like, how is that even possible anymore? Because it feels like, we've already, like, here's the thing. It's kind of like with knowledge that everyone's sort of building this, like, sort of really big, like, pyramid or something like that constantly keeps on changing in size over the course of human history as we learn more and more. And we keep on competing to be the top, on the top of that pyramid, but then someone keeps on making a bigger and bigger pyramid or base than us, right? And it just keeps on getting, and it takes more and more effort every year that goes by to add something or to learn or discover something that will go above the top, or at least go above, a very high point in the pyramid, of the pyramid. It sort of feels like, okay, well, if you went, so for example here, if you went back in time to prehistory, you might be a fucking genius, because you would be the only person around, probably, to know about shit like gravity, or to understand, thermodynamic rules or laws or whatever, or you'd be the only one to understand, like, social dynamics really well, and everyone else would just be, that exists or is alive at the time, would be comparatively, not definitively, just comparatively, a lot fucking dumber than you, or a lot stupider. And I'm not saying, you could also argue, smart is not just book smart, it's also, street smart. So, factor that in too, right? Maybe you know how to fight for yourself a lot more effectively and efficiently than caveman do, or, or whatever, like, a more effective way of having, tons of easy food or something like that. You have agriculture and they don't, or something, right? But then that gets harder, a little bit harder if you go forward to, early agricultural societies. It gets a little harder when you go into, ancient empires. Then it gets harder when you go into, we could even say, like, the Renaissance. Definitely quite significantly. You could even say it's even harder in, the, 18 or 1900s. It's even harder now, right? Because we just keep on building and building and building on top of that, and it's like, well, I don't know. Maybe honestly, I'm probably just focusing on the completely wrong thing here. I'm having the wrong focus right now at this moment. I don't know why. Why am I getting so up in arms with that? Isn't it like a good and nice thing that there's so much more information, right? That we have easy access to, especially because it's the information age, right? We have, phones and computers and whatnot. We can just use, and we can just do a quick Google search and just learn stuff like that. I do think that is really big. I do think that is really, maybe I failed to fully understand how, maybe how monumental that is in the course of human history. Right? Even just, a few decades ago, right, it might have even been unthinkable to just be like, oh yeah, I could just pull out a device, and I can just tell it to search whatever I want, and I will probably find at least something on it. right? Because you'd have to ask people, you'd have to read books, you'd have to scour like whole databases on stuff, where you'd have to maybe even go abroad, or have to go meet with big scientists or historians, or you'd really have to put a lot more work into knowing these things, or being able to make an argument for, or like, for example, I mean, just think about how you used to have to write papers, right? You have to go in and you'd have to look at library catalogs, and you'd have to manually go through and read long ass books for hours on end to maybe get something out of it you could use in your paper, which honestly I would hate doing now. I mean, because if it's like, oh, I only have like a week or two to do that, it's like, it's gonna take too fucking long. I just want to get done. I just want to get over it. Like, come on, stop. I don't have to put in insane amounts of effort to just, like I said, just to get just a little bit of information that I may or may not be really all that important or useful, right? Like, it just feels humiliating to be like, let me spend 5 days reading this book, and then let me use that in my essay, take a lot of time and effort and thought to doing that, and then the teacher be like, no, this is not even relevant, this is not even important, or you're just completely wrong. Like, that would just feel humiliating. That would just feel embarrassing. That would just feel like, okay, why did I even bother to waste all that time on this one thing that doesn't even matter? Like, why even bother? Why even try? If it's not going to get me what I want, then who cares? And I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking that because I live in this era where we just we just expect things to be convenient. We just expect things to be super easy like that. But I don't know. I'm sorry. I should probably try to see him when my club meetings that might even be right now. But I kind of forgot about that. But I don't know. I mean, I think that, well, one, I'm quite lucky and privileged to have a lot of these sort of things that haven't existed for most of human history, right? And here I am complaining about stuff I haven't even had to do. I mean, that's perspective. That should be perspective enough for me. I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know what to say. I mean, I wish I could have a nice ending or reveal something like bigger. You come across some like big truth or something or other, but I don't know. I don't. And, well, that's okay. We don't have to know everything that there is about life or reality, and I don't know, maybe a lot of other people have understood that a lot better than I have. And maybe I've, and honestly, I think if I'm being real with myself, I think that I've kind of just let this sort of questioning and trying to figure stuff out and analyzing maybe is like the thing that I'm just overdoing. I'm just overdoing it. It's a lot simpler if I just get out into the world and I just do shit. If I just, take my time and have a life and I just maybe quiet my mind or whatever, right? Then, things will reveal themselves to me. Maybe not in the way that I, expect or used to, but, in their own right, in their own time, right? And yeah, I mean, maybe that's just the way it is, you know. But, or as I imagine, my mom saying, like, you know, just go, stop, just go, you know, just go play your game, just go, you know, hang out with your friend, or, you know, eat some lunch or whatever. Honestly, yeah, probably right, because when is my mom not right? I mean, yeah, I mean, seriously, I mean, I've never really talked about it much on here, but yeah, I mean, if you're watching this, Mom, and you've somehow, if you've had the time, which I don't know if you do, because you're super busy and all that, but right, like, if you somehow managed to stick around for this long, thank you, love you, Mom. You're like, yeah, and you know, I admit, and you know, in the video here, you know, she says something like, maybe not 100% of the time, but like very, very frequently. Say like 99% of the time or something. I don't know. She's right. So, so yeah, I'd be like, yeah, I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna argue. I'm not gonna just, you know, okay. I don't know how she does it, but no, she does. So, anyways, yeah, that's kind of why I think, you know, whole last point I was making here before I was talking about all and all that. You know, maybe that's why I might do, you know, well with someone who is different from me, right? You know, personality-wise, right? I mean, that's kind of why I think that, you know, as much as I, you know, know that I sometimes am really attracted to, highly intelligent, you know, sort of like, women, you know, that, you know, really think a lot. This, you know, sometimes maybe it might be, I don't know, maybe it doesn't really matter, but maybe it might be better or healthier for me to, you know, be with someone who can kind of help bring me out of my head a little bit more, you know, who's maybe a little more, you know, outgoing and, you know, trying different things, and maybe push me out of the comfort zone a little bit more. So, yeah, this is kind of, you know, kind of what I'm thinking. So I don't know exactly like what personality type that would be. I mean, I can say what types. I feel like if I do though, I'm probably gonna be like, well, you're gonna be like, well, you know, don't be exclusive with that, or or like, I might change my mind later on because, you know, I do. I change my mind all the time. Or, whatever. But regardless, I think if I made my point probably clear enough on there. You know what? I've talked long enough. It's an hour and 4 or 5 minutes, so I just gotta go eat some lunch or something. I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. If you liked this or resonated with anything I said, or if you liked any of the content I've made, you want to see more stuff like it, feel free to like the video, subscribe to my channel if you feel so inclined, yeah, I'm trying to reach 100 subscribers before Easter. I already said that earlier, but there you go again. In case you didn't catch the first time. And if you have a good time, day, night, whatever it is for you. And I'll see you next one. Peace.